Have you ever stopped to think about where our laws actually come from? I mean, really come from. Well, in this explainer, we're going to peel back the layers on centuries of tradition, courtroom fights, and raw political power to get to the bottom of it. On the surface, it seems like a pretty simple question, right? But the answer, well, the answer is this incredible mix of ancient customs, high-stakes courtroom drama, and, of course, modern politics. The rule book that runs our society has a surprisingly twisty origin story. Okay, so it really all boils down to three main sources. The best way to think about it is like a pyramid of power. Each layer has its own kind of authority, and we're going to start right at the bottom, at the foundation, and work our way up to the very top. So first up, we have maybe the weirdest and most fascinating source, constitutional conventions. These are basically the unwritten rules of the game that form the bedrock of the whole system. So what are they? Well, don't think of them as laws written down in some dusty book. They're more like powerful traditions, a kind of national code of conduct that everyone just agrees to follow. You know the rule that the monarch has to sign off on a bill passed by Parliament? Guess what? That's not actually a law. It's just a super powerful convention that's followed because, well, that's just how it's done. And here is the absolute key difference, the thing you have to get your head around. Because these aren't actual laws, you can't be dragged into court for breaking one. Their power doesn't come from a judge or jury. It comes from political pressure and this shared understanding that, hey, these are the rules we all play by. Okay, let's climb up to the next level of our pyramid. This is where we see how law has been hammered into shape for hundreds and hundreds of years, not by politicians, but by judges themselves. This is what we call the common law. It's this amazing, organic thing that literally grew out of real-life arguments and disputes that people brought to court. Imagine instead of starting with a rule book, the rule book got written one single case at a time. So, how does that work? It's a process called judicial precedent. Picture it. A senior judge gets a case that's totally new, something they've never seen before. The decision they make doesn't just end that one argument. It sets a new rule, a precedent, that every lower court in the country has to follow from that day on. And this is why you always hear lawyers talking about famous old cases. They aren't just telling stories from history class. Those cases are the authorities. A single judgment from decades or even centuries ago can define an entire area of law and still be the go-to rule today. Let me give you a perfect and honestly kind of mind-blowing example. The crime of murder. You'd think there's a big murder act written down somewhere, right? Nope, there isn't one. The entire definition of what murder is has been built up piece by piece over centuries of court decisions. That's totally different from other serious crimes which are spelled out word for word in laws passed by Parliament. And that brings us right to the top, the peak of our pyramid. We're now at the most powerful, the most supreme source of law in the entire English legal system, and that is statute law. So, what is it? Simply put, a statute is a formal, written law. You might know it as an act of Parliament. For a statute to become law, it's got to get passed by the House of Commons, then the House of Lords, and finally it gets that official royal assent. Now, this all rests on one huge, absolutely central idea: parliamentary sovereignty. If you only remember one concept from this whole explainer, make it this one. It means that Parliament has the final say, always. It is the ultimate source of law, and its power is absolute. So what does that supreme power actually look like? Well, an act of Parliament can literally create a new law from scratch. It can destroy an old one, and, this is the big one, it can change or completely throw out any rule created by the common law. It doesn't matter what judges have decided for the last 500 years, one new act of Parliament trumps everything. So let's quickly recap that hierarchy, our pyramid of power. At the very bottom, you have the conventions, these powerful traditions that aren't legally enforceable. In the middle, you've got the common law, built up by judges, always evolving. But sitting right on top of it all, reigning supreme, is statute law. It's the final word from Parliament. Of course, while those are the three main sources, the legal system doesn't operate in a vacuum. It's always being shaped by outside forces, Things like international treaties play a role, and of course, for a long, long time, the laws from the European Union had a massive impact, and they've definitely left a significant mark on UK law that's still there today. And this brings us to one last really crucial question. If Parliament's power is supreme, if it's unlimited, what's to stop it from making any law it wants? What keeps that incredible power in check? Now that is a deep, deep question about the balance of power, and it's one we are definitely going to dig into in a future explainer.